In today's video, we're jumping back to our NHL offseason plan series. Today, we're looking at the 25th ranked team from the regular season, the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken are a team that's going through a lot of changes. How can they get better, and what should we expect of them this offseason? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're jumping back to our offseason plan series, and today we review the Seattle Kraken, the 25th ranked team from the NHL's regular season. Of course, 1 year removed from making their first appearance ever in franchise history in the playoffs, and knocking off, at the time, the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche, making it to the second round and having another long series, and really not really all that far off from going to round three. Ultimately, this was a big step back for them this year, and we see the changes are starting to begin in the process to kind of, I wouldn't say maybe like a retool of this team kind of needs to happen. So let's first take a look at what happened last year, analyze the results, why did they take a step back, look at the top performers, and then we'll look into their cap situation, what do they have for expiring contracts, and what we should expect from them this offseason. Obviously, they finished with a record of 34, 35, and 13 for 81 points. That's over a 20-point drop from last year's record. So obviously, like I said, a major step back. And last year, they were one of the team's higher scoring teams. This year, they were near the bottom of the league, 29th overall, 214 goals for. That's a far cry from last year. And like I said, a major step back. They continue to be a good defensive hockey team, though. Number 9 in goals against, 232 on the season. So that part, pretty decent. The power play was not elite, but respectable, 20.7%, so right around league average. The penalty kill, slightly below average, but not the worst, not the best. Like I said, a little bit below average, 78.8, 20th best. I'm surprised the penalty kill's not better, given how good of a defensive team they were. So they certainly have a bit of work to do in that regard. If they can cut down a few more power play goals, they can be an even better defensive team. But this team really needs to find a way to score more goals. The year before, when they were scoring at a much higher rate, they were also scoring, like a lot of their players were at a clip for shooting percentage that was not sustainable. I know I had talked a lot before and felt a lot before that this team was far exceeding expectations, and it was definitely going to level out and keeping things up this year without making any more changes to make the team, like bringing in another superstar or another top offensive player, was going to be very challenging. They had a lot of players hit career highs in goals and points and shooting percentage all at the same time, and you can't expect all of them to duplicate that. It's just not really feasible. Even their top scorer last year was Jared McCann. He had over 40 goals, a 40-goal season last year. This year's 29, and 29 is still really good. But, when you're the top guy and your numbers are down like 11, 12 goals or whatever it was, and then everybody else is down a bit, and then everybody else is down more, you add it all up, and then boom, all of a sudden there's like 60, 70 goals gone or more off the season. It really adds up, and it really hurts. So looking at their top performers, though, last year, we had McCann leading the way, 62 points, 29 goals. Oliver Bjorkstrand had 59 points. He had a good year. Then the third highest scorer was Vince Dunn with 46, and then it really tails off in the forward group to Jordan Eberle at 44 points and Ellie Tolvanen, who's been a nice pickup for them, at 41. So your leading scorer only has just over 60 points. Then it goes one player in the 50s and then all the way down to the 40s. So they had a lot of players, like I said, really take steps back offensively. Thankfully, between the pipes, Joey Decord was there to grab the reins. He finished with a 19 and 18 and 11 record, 2.46 goals against, 916 save percentage. He was really good for them. Grubauer continues to struggle. His save percentage was only 899, 2.85 goals against, and a sub 500 record, 14, 16, and 2. So obviously, this is a team that signed Grubauer to be the starter. He's never really lived up to that contract. Thankfully, they got Joey Decord in the expansion draft from the Ottawa Senators. He spent his time in the minors, paid his dues. He'd already, in my opinion, had paid most of his dues before he even got to Seattle. But of course, with the logjam of goalies, he had to wait his turn. And once he got it, he took advantage, and he's not giving up the net now. So they have themselves a real good one there. Throughout the season, we did see some change, but it wasn't anything too crazy. They did trade Alex Wenberg to the New York Rangers at the deadline. Earlier in the year, they had picked up Tomas Tatar in December from the Avalanche, who hadn't really worked out there. I'm not sure if Tatar will return, but at the end of the day, that's really all they did. It wasn't a whole lot. At the end of the season, they did part ways with head coach Dave Haxall. So Haxall's gone after 3 years as the Kraken bench boss, and now that's one more thing to add to Ron Francis' to-do list here in the short term to get ready for next year. Looking at their cap situation, they're in decent shape. They have $23.1 million available, and that includes 15 contracts that they already have on the books for next year. They have 3 RFAs, a couple of which are pretty important players for this team, including Matty Beniers, Eli Tolvanen, and Kaylor Yamamoto. Yamamoto, of course, the first player from the area to play for the franchise, which is a good milestone in itself. Obviously, he came over after he was moved from Edmonton to, I think, Detroit, and then bought out, and he became a UFA, signed in Seattle. I'm not sure if he'll be back or not. It's hard to say. It's not a given. It is possible they could not qualify him, but then again, they might. It just depends on when it comes to Tolvanen. He's getting signed. Beniers is definitely getting signed. Yamamoto, to me, is a little bit of a question mark. On the UFA side, you get Tomas Tatar, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Justin Schultz, and Chris Driedger. And from what we've heard, I wouldn't be shocked if all of them do not return. I know I've already heard from Seattle media that Justin Schultz is not expected back. Chris Driedger, not expected back. He suffered a pretty serious injury. I think it was back 2 seasons ago now. Missed most of last year. Come back when he was in the minors a lot. To me, I think they're ready to move on and run with DeCord as their main goalie and Grubauer as like the 1B, I guess we'll call him. Bellemare and Tatar, older veterans that I'm not sure they really have room for now. They need to find some more, a bit younger offensive players, and I'm not sure that they fit the longer term vision here. So the RFAs will, at least a few of them will be back. UFAs, on the other hand, not so much. The 2024 NHL Draft is going to be another big event for the Kraken. They have 9 picks overall, including multiple picks in the second and third round. After the draft lottery has been completed now, we know they're picking 8th overall, which is where they would have been based on standings as well. There was no change with the Sharks and Blackhawks getting the first 2 picks based on the lottery, which is where they were standings-wise, so nobody else gets bumped up or down. So at that spot, they should be able to get themselves a pretty good player. There's lots of D available in that 5 to 10, 12 range. So they could get themselves maybe, it's just hard to say how the order goes, but, maybe they get an eye on Tisha Ginla. If he's still there, I don't know. He might go higher than that. Then there's also some pretty serious good defensemen like Zane Parake. Zeev Buium, University of Denver is really solid. Or maybe they go after another offensive guy. It's hard to say, but either way, they're going to be able to get themselves another really good foundational piece to build around here with some of the other young players they've already acquired. Now, the top questions facing the franchise this offseason, well, number one is, who's your new coach going to be? It's a big job for Ron Francis. Of course, it's going to be his second coach. You want to make sure you get it right. A lot of belief that Dan Bilesma might be the guy. Dan Bilesma, of course, has been working with Coachella Valley in the AHL, already in the franchise. He already has NHL coaching experience before, including Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh. He was also head coach, I believe, in Buffalo, too. So, he's had multiple head coaching gigs in the NHL. He's been an assistant in the NHL, has a cup to his name. He's done great things with the AHL team, which is going to be producing some more, players in the pipeline for this franchise that will be familiar with him and his style. So, to me, he makes a ton of sense. I think there's an outside chance that maybe they go for a guy like Dean Evison. Of course, Evison would know Ron Francis well from their playing days together. A little bit of a different coach, fiery coach, most recently from the Minnesota Wild. Maybe Craig Berube. Berube's going to be able to pick his spot. I'm not sure he goes to Seattle. I think he wants a team that's closer to being a cup contender myself. He's been linked to New Jersey. He's been linked to maybe LA if they decide to make a change. And, of course, all eyes are on the Leafs right now. We don't know if Sheldon Keefe is returning in Toronto. That could be an option. So I think the Kraken would have a lot of competition if they do want to try to bring Berube in. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I think it's less likely, especially when you have a guy like Bilesma right there already in your organization. I think it's Bilesma or Evason myself, but I guess we'll see. But they're both great options. Bilesma to me is the easier choice. So we'll see. Like I said before, they definitely need more scoring. There's no doubt about that. And they need to, well, for starters, they need to bring in a coach who's going to have good offensive mindset and can obviously help this team become more offensive. And then they need to add some pieces to help with that as well. Obviously, hopefully putting Shane Wright in a top 6 role would be great. I mean, he did get to come up towards the end of the season after spending the whole year mostly in the minors, where he did perform well in the American Hockey League. And in his time at the end of the year that he got to play, he got a top 6 role, and he was doing very well. So I think he can play well in the right role with the right line mates. Like at the end of the day, Hackstall had him before in his limited time in the NHL, mostly in the 4th line, bottom 6, and it's just he's not going to be a guy that thrives there at all. So to me, I think you need to bring in Shane Wright, give him an opportunity to be a top 6 for you, and then at the same time you need to make some additions, whether it be through trade or free agency. You need a couple of players that can help you score more goals, and then of course you need your new coach to be able to help work with these guys to bring them back closer to what they were 2 years ago. But like I said, you had all those players shooting at an exceptionally high shooting percentage, along with hitting career highs. Like you can't bank on that year after year. It's not sustainable in the least. But they're already pretty good defensively. If they can manage to keep what they have and add some more goals to it, they should be able to have a lot more success. So at the end of the day, it's really going to boil down to just how they do there. I do wonder how busy they'll be in the trade market or in the free agency market. Ron Francis, for the most part, in his tenure, is known to be pretty safe and guarded in that sense. And if they're going to go into free agency, then I wouldn't expect anything crazy. They're not going to overpay for players, and certainly not going to be a case where you see him out there taking a swing on a big free agent deal that's going to look terrible in a year. That's not his style of managing. I'd be shocked if we've seen that happen. Not to say that they couldn't go after a bigger name. There's certainly going to be some interesting offensive players on the market, or at least they're expected to be. I mean, I don't know if they'd be able to land a player like a Steven Stamkos or a Patrick Kane, but there's going to be some top veterans that are going to sign for a shorter term available in that sense. We've heard lots of rumblings about Mitch Marner out of Toronto. Is there any way Seattle would want to take a run at making a trade with the Leafs for Marner? And secondly, would Marner want to be a Kraken? Because certainly he's going to be able to call his shot because of the protection in his contract. So at the end of the day, Ron Francis needs to add goals. First and foremost, their decor is, for the most part, not too bad. They probably do need to tinker there a little bit. They have their goaltending. The main thing is offense and scoring. And that's really what they want to target via the draft and whatever they do in free agency. But like I said, adding a few players, a veteran or two, would probably be wise. They have some good prospects, but outside of Shane Wright, I'm not sure there's anybody who's really going to jump into that lineup and have a full-time role as early as next year. So let me know your thoughts and expectations for the offseason for the Seattle Kraken. Who do you expect to be the new head coach? Who should they target to bring in to help them score more goals? Because it's certainly going to be a major area of focus getting ready for next year. Let me know your thoughts on the expectations. Let me know your expectations for the Seattle Kraken in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.